welcome to my channel. My name is Andrea, and today I'm going to show you how to make cherry almond scones. So if you're a brand new baker, this is going to be an easy one for you to tackle. So first thing, we're going to get our oven preheated to 350 degrees. I've got a sheet tray with a piece of parchment on it ready. All right, let's get into this. So first, to our medium-sized bowl, we are going to add 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. So let's get that measured out. When I'm measuring out flour, I don't just scoop the scoop in. I always fill it with another scoop. That way I'm not getting too much flour. So there's 1. One and a half. And 1 3/4. All right. This helps you. So if you get too much flour in there, your scones or your other baking ingredients are going to be dry. So that's going to keep that dry mixture down. So we're going to go with 1/4 cup of cornstarch. So we'll get it here. All right. There we go. And then 1/3 cup of sugar. Now the sugar you can just go ahead and scoop in because it's not going to compact like flour will. So 1/3 cup of sugar. And then salt, we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I just use a fine sea salt for that. 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And then a teaspoon of baking powder. I like to go ahead and get all my ingredients set out first and ready. That way I make sure that I've got everything that I need. And I'm not getting halfway through my recipe and then realizing that I'm missing something or don't have enough of an ingredient. So get your mise en place in place. It will make your baking process much better. Okay. So in this, we are going to take this stick of butter. I just set it out of the fridge a couple of minutes ago, so it's still pretty solid. And to make it easier, let me take off these rings because this is not going to be, there we go. We are going to grate the butter into our dry mixture. So this is going to make it much easier to mix up. If you don't have a grater or you don't want to do it this way, you can go ahead and just chop it into chunks and add it like you would a pastry. All right, so now that we have our butter into our dry mixture, we're just going to mix this up using your hands and just kind of work that in. You don't want to work it too much because you don't want your hands to melt the butter too much, but just kind of work that in there a bit. If you don't want to use your hands, you can use a fork. That'll work just fine. I just find that using my hands, I can really get in there and I can tell that it's getting mixed in well. So, okay. So that's about where you want it to be. It's going to kind of resemble kind of meal. So it's going to look kind of chunky and dry. So that's about right. Let me wash this real quick. And now we're going to, in another bowl, mix up egg. Set that aside. Let's just go ahead and get an egg mixed up here. Grab a whisk. Whisk that a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and add a half a cup of sour cream. This is an 8-ounce container, so I know that half of that is going to be a half a cup. So I'm just going to divide it. See if I can get it out of here. There we go. Okay. I like to clean as I go, so pardon me here. All right, so we're just going to kind of mix this a little bit best we can. We'll go ahead and get our almond extract, and we're going to want a teaspoon of almond, so we can just go ahead and add it right in there. If you don't like almond, you can always do vanilla, but they are cherry almond scones, so you do want some almond flavor in there. All right, so we're going to want a half a cup of dried cherries. I just leave them whole. They're fine. If you don't like them that big, you can chop them up a little bit. Just give them a rough chop. So put that in there. And that's a half a cup. I got just a little bit. I'm just going to throw that in there. So it's not enough that it's going to make any difference. All right, so I'll just kind of toss those in there. And let's get a spatula. Just dump this in. These go together really quick and really easy, so something that you could whip together if you have the ingredients on short notice. So, all right. Now let's just kind of mix it up here. And you just want to get as much of the dry mixture mixed in. You just don't want to over mix it. So just kind of, it almost kind of cutting it in a little bit. So, all right, most of it. So let's clean that off. All right, so I'm going to take some flour. Just put a little bit down on my counter. And then we are going to dump this out. You're going to put your flour on there just so this doesn't stick to your counter. Otherwise you'll be scraping it up off of there. So, but you don't want too much flour because you don't want to add a lot of flour to your mixture here. So we're just going to kind of form it in a rough circle here without mixing it too much. Just kind of make sure that it's all about the same thickness all the way around. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the one thing I like about scones is they're a little rustic, a little rough. And then take a knife, or I've got a bench scraper here that works great. So I'm just going to divide this in half. So, and then divide it in half that way, just like cutting a pie. So we're going to get 8 scones. Whoops, that one kind of broke apart there. That cherry kind of got in the way. There we go. We'll fix it just like this. And that's the great thing about these. It's okay. There we go. So you get 8 scones out of this, and there's another cherry in there, so let's, there we go. All right. So we're just going to place these on our baking tray here. These are super soft. They're not really going to spread much, so you can put them fairly close together. It's okay. It's not going to hurt it. Now these scones tend to be a little on the soft side. I know traditionally a scone is fairly dry, and that's probably how most people like them, but these being a little softer, I actually really like them that way, so it's okay. If you like a drier scone, just make them a day before you want to serve them, and they'll kind of dry out a little bit. So get that cherry to stick in there. There you go. All right, so we are going to place these in our oven. Again, it has been preheated to 350 degrees, and we're gonna bake them for about 15 minutes. We're gonna check them, and if we need to leave them a couple of minutes longer, then we will. We just want them to kind of start getting a little bit golden and feel like they're firm. So, all right, so when we come back, I'm going to pull them out of the oven, and then we'll make an icing drizzle to go over top. So I've taken the scones out of the oven and let them cool for about 5 minutes here. Wound up baking them for a total of 22 minutes to get them just exactly how I wanted. So when you're baking and you've got it set for a certain time, always check. If you feel that you need to add more time, add more time. So we're going to go ahead and make our drizzle, and with that, I don't usually have a real specific recipe for this. It's usually just mix some stuff up and go, but we're going to go with about a tablespoon of room temperature butter. And you don't have to put butter in this, but I just think that it makes a nicer drizzle. So, and then about a half a cup of powdered sugar. And we're not even going to bother sifting it. It's okay. And then you can use milk. I'm going to use almond milk. So I'm going to go with a teaspoon to start off with of almond milk. And we'll add more if I feel we need more. And then we're going to go with a teaspoon of almond extract. All right, so mix this up and see where we're at. Yeah, so we're going to need a little more liquid, because you can see it's just kind of balling up. You could spread that, but we want to actually pour it and kind of drizzle it on there. So let's go with some more milk. So we're going to go 1 more teaspoon, and I think that might get it. Most things when you're baking are fairly precise, but there are some areas that there's a little more leeway and more flexibility for you. So we are almost there. I think I want it just a tiny bit more, so probably a half a teaspoon. We'll see. Yes, that's what you want. So 2.5 teaspoons of almond milk, and that will do it. All right, so this tray may still be a little hot, so we're just going to move it over here. And they've gotten just a touch of golden color on them, so they're just right. You don't want them too overdone. And they're still, yeah, they're just a little bit warm to the touch. So we're just going to take our drizzle here and just go over these. You're not looking for a heavy coat on these at all. So it's just a little touch of sweetness. because even though the scones have some sugar in them, they're not super sweet. So, whoops. So usually I go and make sure I get some on every one of them, and then I'll go back. So here we go. And more. All right. And that about does it. Let's use up the rest of this. No point in wasting it. There we go. Okay. And there, let's plate one of these up. This one looks really nice. And this one. And there you have easy cherry almond scones. If you like this recipe, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and comment, like, and share.